They came seeking their fortunes, a look into their future.
I knocked at her door just to get a card reading, just to see, just out of curiosity, what might be going on in my life.
And they all were looking for hope, and that's what Gina sold them. Drug dealers pushed drugs, she pushed hope.
But before their session with psychic scam artist Gina Miller was over, she'd identified them as a mark and hooked them.
Because once your aura turns black, once it collapses, there is nothing in nobody that can put it back together.
Many remained under her spell and her thumb for years.
I think what Gina was doing was using interrogation interview skills, just like I did as a detective. But she was able to pinpoint people's weaknesses.
I've never done this before, okay?
That's okay.
I'm nervous about it.
Don't be nervous, I look scary.
They would give Gina their vulnerability, and she'd pounce.
My child's life is in danger. You're going to do anything to save your kid.
Over the course of about 20 years, and under the guise of protecting them from evil spirits and curses, Gina Miller drained her victims of everything.
I lost my house because of all of this. I lost my pension, my 401k, that all went into it.
She took life savings and limb.
She would visit this person and tell them, you don't need medical attention. Don't go to the doctor. You have this raging infection. You need to drink this special tea from Jerusalem. And that person lost a limb, had to be amputated. Victims were leasing Cadillacs and Mercedes, and she was driving them. If you buy me this $20,000 Rolex, and I'm going to sacrifice it, it has to be destroyed, but that's going to alter the timing curse that's put on you.
You need crystals. Do you know what crystals are?
Have not a clue.
You have to wear them close to your skin. In 9 days and 9 nights, Patty, you're going to see results. You might bring me a nice present. You're going to say thank you, Gina.
9 days.
So what was happening to her victims financially and emotionally while they were handing over $10,000, $20,000, $100,000?
They were being utterly destroyed in every way humanly possible.
Miller was convicted of stealing more than $1 million from fortune-seeking victims.
I showed $2.248 million in the investigation, but she took a plea bargain for $1 million.
In your wildest dream, do you think that she stole twice that?
Yes, maybe 3 times.
And all this was pulled off by a woman with a 2nd grade education and a lifetime of practicing the art of the con.
You have to make a sacrifice for the materials that I need.
Okay.
The work that I'm going to do for you, my time, I don't want nothing.
I'm Jen Picciano, and this is Dark Side of the Land. In this episode, I'll take you undercover to hear a session with this fake fortune teller for an intimate look at how she reeled in her victims and the tactics she used to control them and steal from them for years.
And I gotta start today.
And after 3 days, it'll be okay?
You're gonna see with your own eyes and hear with your own ears. You're gonna say, Gina, why didn't you just tell me this the first day I came and got this over with?
We're going to take you inside the investigation with the detective that brought her house of tarot cards down.
I mean, being honest, I just got pissed off.
How does this happen? How do they go from looking for hope and wanting a better life to walking in the door, being sold a bill of goods by Gina, and then handing over thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars? How does that happen?
I don't know, but it does.
Detective Mike Mullaney had been suspicious of Gina Miller since his rookie year on the police department in Mentor, Ohio.
And I remember sitting across from her little storefront at like 2 a.m. watching these fancy cars pulling up and people getting out and going in there and coming back. And I'm like, what are they doing in there? I could never figure anything out, so I just watched them. It doesn't make sense. This was a little broke down building with a little palm reader neon sign in the window, and we have Escalades and Mercedes coming in and out of there all night.
Surveillance photos snapped outside of the psychic parlor show Gina was small in stature and slightly overweight.
Gina's mini. She's like not even 5 foot tall.
At the time, Miller was in her late 30s, dark complected, with dark skin and dark eyes, dark hair.
She portrayed herself as a Roma gypsy, you know? And it's just people of that culture. I think it started in Romania, and like they travel and swindle.
That's their trade.
That's their job. Yeah, that's their trade. It's what they do.
It was several years after his initial observations and suspicions that he began looking deeper and investigating what went on inside her Mentor Avenue psychic parlor under the glow of that neon light.
There was a report that came in that somebody, they came on post, during whatever business hours have you, and they came in and said, hey, this Gina Miller portrays herself as a psychic, and now I'm out $100,000.
Whoa, that's a lot of money.
It is.
Okay, so that you said, all right, hang on, tell me your story. I mean, it's easy to kind of dismiss people saying, well, you're out $100,000. Did you give it to her? I don't know. I guess how do you treat that?
There were at least 2, maybe 3 other people who had come in reporting huge amounts of money paid to Gina. Huge amounts, 6 figures.
Wow.
And every time the officer takes the report and the prosecutor said, well, it's a civil matter. You paid her for a service.
Really?
Yes.
So what was the tipping point to investigate this criminally as opposed to dismissing it as a civil situation?
I mean, being honest, I just got pissed off.
I'm
like, this is enough. This is crazy. There has to be something more to this. People are not going to fork over $100,000 to some lady to tell them their future. They're not going to do that. No one would do that.
Right. But so many people were doing it.
They were. And I didn't understand why at the time, but I understand now. First, I tried to understand what these people were paying for.
What was the scam? How did it work?
Yeah, like,
okay.
Who would do this? Why would this happen?
It happened more often and easier than he realized. This started with you walked into her door. Why?
I was lonely. I've been stuck in a job I didn't like. I hated it. I just wanted to know if things were going to change.
Victims like a woman who we'll call Barbara got caught up in Gina Miller's scam and lost everything. She gave us an insight into how she was drawn in and duped.
She just made you feel special and like you had a friend.
But after she did her initial card reading, Gina had what Barbara thought was an odd request.
She wanted my phone number or whatever in case there should be some kind of an emergency. And that's what I thought was very odd. I thought it was fun at the time because I thought, what kind of an emergency would a psychic or card reader have?
But then she used that to exploit you, didn't she?
Exactly. Because that kind of led the groundwork. And next thing I know, my child's life is in danger. He might be an adult, but his life was in danger. You're going to do anything to save your kid. Or my pet, or this would happen, and that was going to happen, and this person was plotting this.
So it's almost like an emotional extortion. If you don't continue, something bad's going to happen to someone in your family, and you're the one who would be responsible then. So they lay this guilt trip on the victim.
Private investigator Bob Nygaard is a retired police officer from New York City. He looks exactly like he sounds, a big guy with a round face, mustache, and goatee. In interviews, he sports exactly what you're likely picturing him in, too, an old-school fedora, suit, and a trench coat. Nygaard has made a name for himself exposing psychic con artists across the country and assisting in the recovery of the money victims have lost in their scams.
I helped 5 women recover $65,000, and then it made the papers down in Miami area and made a big splash. And next thing you know, people were calling me from all over the world saying, hey, Bob, you're the psychic guy. I got ripped off by a psychic. And you helped me out. I've had over 50 cases. I've helped people get back over $4.5 million, close to $5 million, and I've never lost a case.
Nygaard says Gina Miller employed classic tactics scam artists have used for generations to create a dependency and steal from her victims. She used things like threats, escalation, pressure, and isolation.
She pretty much makes you alienate your family because anybody in your family turns out, well, they're not good. They're working against you. They're actually doing like witchcraft or voodoo or whatever against you. So you get real paranoid against family members so you don't tell anyone.
Barbara's relationship with Gina Miller led to her estrangement from her father and mountains of loss and debt. So she, all this time, has kind of a grip on you, saying that she sees these pending emergencies happening to you or people in your life. And then what did she ask of you?
Well, she would need thousands of dollars of money. And it's like, oh, well, she's going to get a car, put it in my name, but she knows somebody who's going to buy it. And then she'll take care of the payments. Don't worry. I lost my house because of all of this. I lost my pension, my 401k, that all went into it. I borrowed money from my father, of course, not telling him why, which I couldn't afford to pay back. And I never did get to pay it back. He passed before I could do that.
She was a hustler.
Yes. And she had my ATM debit card. Like, you're working and it's all going to her. I'd be lucky if I had $100. And it got to the point where it's like, please leave me $45 because I have a phone payment coming out. My father ended up not even speaking to me before he passed.
At what point did you think this is not okay, that there's a problem here, that this isn't a person who has spiritual power, this is a person who is a criminal?
It really didn't hit me until after the detective contacted me.
I started learning about these palm readers, and there wasn't a lot out there at the time about this type of crime.
Mm-hmm.
Not a lot of police departments or federal agencies even were very successful in prosecuting these.
Mm-hmm.
Because on the surface, it looks like you paid for a service.
Mm-hmm.
You
and
went
people
there.
just stop there?
Right. And
Victims and investigators?
Yeah, I think the biggest hurdle is prosecution.
Mm-hmm.
You have to prove something, and to prove this scale fraud took a lot of effort.
Mm-hmm.
A lot.
And you were willing to put that in?
Well, yeah, this was not okay with me.
Mentor Detective Mike Mullaney met with Lake County prosecutors to see what they'd need to stop Gina Miller and successfully convict her. What do they always say? Follow the money. Mullaney followed a paper trail provided by one of the first victims he encountered before Barbara.
She said, well, one day Gina picked me up, drove me to my bank, which they were already waiting for me. She called my bank pretending to be me to cash out a 401k.
In exchange for what, in theory?
For Gina praying to prevent a trailer fire because her son lived in a trailer. He was going to die in a trailer fire if she did not give this money.
Again, Gina went back to the well of emotional extortion, saying she sees potential harm happening to this woman's child, just like she did with Barbara. So then Mullaney gained momentum with the help of that first victim who came forward, using information from her experience to track down a dozen more of Gina's victims.
She was able to guide me, around this date, I saw this person there. And then I went back through the old reports and I matched them up, figured out who the people were.
The other victims?
Yeah, some of the other victims.
Uh-huh.
And I approached them.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a real roll of the dice. I was nervous.
Well, and I would think that this is a very, it would be hard to prosecute also because people will come forward to say that they lost this money, but a lot of these people, their spouses didn't know what was going on.
Correct. Nobody.
It was a secret. And Gina I listened to the tapes, she would tell them, this is our secret.
My husband doesn't know about this, so.
He's not going to know about anything.
Okay.
You're going to have
I
to worry
don't want
about
him to know.
No one's going to know. Whatever goes on, the only thing that
Okay.
knows is me, you, and God. And that's
Okay.
it, no one else.
Nobody else knew, and yet they were losing their life savings. They were maxing out credit cards. In the 200-page case file, I came across statements from Gina's victims, one of which told police they'd given the self-proclaimed psychic between $2 and $3 million over the last 20 years. So where did all that money go?
She had Louis Vuitton bags and Gucci shoes and designer everything everywhere. The house was not well kept, but you could tell that the contents of the home had a higher value than the home itself.
Wow. She was just living the life.
Yes, yeah.
Gambling, shopping.
Fur coats. I found $100,000 in W-2Gs. So when you go to the casino and you win, they give you the tax form. Mm-hmm. In 1 year, she had $100,000 worth of W-2Gs. So figure how much you have to gamble to win $100,000.
The case file also details a 3-week-long vacation in Florida with her family on a victim's dime. And so how difficult was it to get victims to speak to you freely about what happened between them and Gina?
It was, without question, the hardest of interviews I ever had. It was very difficult to go and meet with them because they were nervous. She knew we were there. She could sense it. She was using her powers to know that the police were at their door.
Oh my goodness. So she still had a hold on them.
Everybody. I think what Gina was doing was using interrogation interview skills, just like I did as a detective, but she was able to pinpoint people's weaknesses. Now, maybe 7 people would walk in, but only one she'd target, one she thought she could get. Mm-hmm. It was someone who displayed physical posturing of someone who was sad. Wasn't very confident.
Sure.
Maybe didn't have...
vulnerability.
Yeah, she was exploiting people's vulnerability without question.
In the tone of her voice, you could hear it change and fluctuate in the undercover visits that I listened to.
What's going to wind up happening is you're going to get a divorce if you don't fix this.
I want a divorce.
Well, we got to fix it.
The tone of her voice changed from, okay, I'm going to do this for you. And then she'd get real pushy when it came to, all right, this is what you're going to do. You're going to get the money from me. And then they would object. And then she would find other ways to overcome the objections about the money.
Right. So even a hard no, she wouldn't accept that.
Okay.
These crystals cost $20 each in your dime that you need. Patty, how much is 9 times 20?
180.
Are you able to do this on maybe dollars?
There's always more than one way to get to your goal. And she knew every single possible tactic.
Including threats.
If for some odd reason you and your husband was not meant to be together, I would not be able to help you.
Okay.
I would tell you I can't help you.
But you don't say that?
No, but you are meant to be
Okay.
together. I cannot go against what God has put together.
Okay.
I mean, basically, as you're reading victim after victim after victim, they all were very scared for, and felt it to be real, threats to the safety and well-being of their loved ones. Mulaney dedicated months to building a case against Miller, jaw-dropping detail by jaw-dropping detail.
Gina told the victims, I need a very powerful car because I need to drive to the mountains of West Virginia to pray in a very specific location. And I'm going to need X amount of cash because I have to buy these items to be sacrificed. Mm-hmm. So I'll need the car, I'll need the money, and your timing is off. So you're going to, for example, she'd use a scenario like, how when you're going to a job interview and you're very well qualified, and this is the job you're going to get and it's high paying, but on the way you get a flat tire and you don't get there and you don't get the job. It's because your timing's off. But if you buy me this $20,000 Rolex, and I'm going to sacrifice it, it has to be destroyed, but that's going to alter the timing curse that's put on you.
Mm-hmm. That was, so timing and watches, I noticed in the evidence I lost count. 6, 7 watches, 7 Rolexes. Mulaney tracked down some of those expensive watches worth $13,000, $25,000, even $45,000 to prove Miller was committing fraud.
During the investigation, I learned she would tell people, I need you to buy me this Rolex, like we were just talking about Rolexes, and I'm going to sacrifice it. It has to be destroyed. Not destroyed, you pawned it. I found it. It was at the pawn shop. You got $8,000 for it. A Rolex is as good as cash. I learned that during this investigation. You can walk into any pawn shop around Cleveland or anywhere in the country with a Rolex, and you can walk out with thousands and thousands of dollars.
And she knew that.
Yes, and they're all serial. They all have serial numbers on them.
Oh, right.
Unique serial numbers. So that's how I could prove it was the exact same watch.
Investigators also conducted surveillance and tracked the many vehicles purchased or leased by victims to prove she was deceiving them. So there were countless, when I say countless, that's putting it lightly, cases of or times where she was doing this, where she was selling, quote, wax sculptures or things that she was doing but really not doing.
Right.
On several occasions, Mulaney said she'd promised to create wax sculptures of people on victims' behalves and charge them per pound.
Now you weigh how much?
I weigh
It's
a
okay,
lot.
it's just
I
me,
know.
you, and God. There's nobody else here.
I know. About 240.
That's 240 pounds of wax.
Wow. That's what you need?
How much does he weigh?